Welcome in new episode of Caught Stealing here at fantasyalarm.com. I'm Colby Conway at Colby R. Conway over on X, and with me here, as always, Matt Selz at the Selz Man over on X. Matt, how is everything going for you, my friend?
Things are good. This weekend was a little bit nerve-wracking out here with severe weather. I'm sure everybody saw videos and clips on Twitter. We came close here in my house, about a mile and a half away from a tornado. But everything's good. Hopefully, none of our listeners in the Midwest were hurt or had houses taken out. So hopefully everybody's good out there. Other than that, pretty exciting baseball weekend. My Nats came back from 7-0 down to win 12-9, so that's pretty exciting. I'll take that.
Easy over in that game. That is for sure. And while things might be good, at least from the weekend, from the excuse me, the Washington side of the house, let's talk about a divisional foe with the Miami Marlins sending yet another starter spending some time on the IL. We obviously know Sandy Alcantara and Yuri Perez out for the year, Edward Cabrera and Braxton Garrett, the former of which who is back, the latter still on the IL dealing with issue. And now, just to round out the fearsome five at the top of that rotation, Jesus Luzardo heads to the injured list as well with some elbow tightness. So this just isn't going to end. I have no clue what to make of it. If you look at like pitch velocity charts, a lot of the guys that throw the hardest, they're kind of dropping like flies a little bit. This goes back to is it the velocity? Is it the pitch clock? Is it whatever that debate wants to end up being? But Jesus Luzardo to the injured list, big blow for the Marlins and fantasy managers alike.
Yeah. Also, when are we going to look into what's happening in Florida with pitching? Because neither the Rays nor the Marlins can keep an entire rotation healthy for more than like 3 weeks at a time, right? I know there's a lot of other teams that can't keep guys healthy either, but certainly seems to be an affliction in Florida right now with the Marlins and the Rays. Also, like you still look at the Rays IL rotation; it's arguably a top 3 rotation in baseball. The Marlins are getting there because now we've got Jesus Luzardo's on the IL. Um, I I don't know, man. Something's got to change. We've got to start teaching pitchers to pitch and not throw. I think that's step number one. Do not go for max velocity. Learn to get guys out with location, sequencing. Um, you know, you talk to Hall of Fame pitchers, right? Like Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer. Um, go back to guys who are not Hall of Famers who are also not pitching, retired like Maddox and Glavine and all those guys. And they'll tell you, I had to learn ways to get guys out without my best stuff because you don't always have your best stuff. And I don't think any of these guys know how to do that right now. And so it's all just full bore. I'm just going to keep pumping in velo until I get people out and then elbows break because they're not designed to deal with this. Jordan Wicks is on the IL with elbow inflammation as well for the Cubs. So I don't know. It's reaching epidemic proportions. It's not just because a bunch of fantasy baseball players are complaining about it. It's literally like, look at every team in baseball. I guarantee you they have at least one guy in their rotation who is not pitching right now because of elbow or shoulder problems.
Yep, and just to go to your point of the the pitching landscape in the state of Florida, Marlins right now starters. I'm just going to pick the top five at my discretion because it's my podcast. I get to do what I want. It's our
There you go.
podcast. We get to do what we want. AJ Puck, Sandy Alcantara, Braxton Garrett, Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez. That's what the Marlins are rocking right now on the IL for their starting pitchers. And then if we go to Tampa Bay's top five pitchers on the
It's ridiculous.
injured list, Shane Baz, Taj Bradley, Shane McClanahan, Drew Rasmussen, and Jeffrey Springs.
Yep, I did see that Bradley had a rehab start in AAA. Looked pretty good. I think he struck
Yep.
out 7 over 5 innings. And to be fair, his was like a lat or a pec issue. It was not an elbow or a shoulder.
Yep.
But like 9 of those 10 dudes are all out with elbow or shoulder problems.
Yep. It is something for all the news related to injuries, ailments, and everything in between over at fantasyalarm.com. I do have the updated fantasy baseball injury report. Go check it out there, from potentially meaningless updates on certain players to very meaningful updates on other players. IL stints, coming off the IL, day-to-day Check it all out over at fantasyalarm.com. Howard Bender also has the updated waiver wire article. So check that for the week ahead. And later this week, obviously, Matt Selz will be dropping some new prospect content. But as a little teaser to later this week, we do have to talk about last week we speculated. Now we actually get to talk about it with Joey Loperfido getting the call after his home run binge that he went on in the minors. So, Matt, let me ask you, I know last week we talked about there's some intriguing parts to his offensive profile. There's going to be some swing and miss. There are going to be some strikeouts. But is this guy, let's say, let's work our way down. Let's say 14 teamers. Is he a must add?
Probably, yeah.
What about 12?
At this point, yes.
And then 10, I'm assuming it's
Going to depend on. We had a question in chat earlier asking in a 10-teamer, is he a must add? And I said, well, it depends on who you're dropping. Right? There's a guy who asked if he should drop CES for him. Yeah, that's fine. Frankly, if the Astros could clone him and play him in 3 different spots, I think they would. In a little bit, we're going to talk about our surprises. There are 3 different Astros that I'm naming in that surprise, so that's a little hint for why Loperfido is called up. Go check your league settings. He may qualify at multiple spots in your league. He may only qualify in one. Kind of depends on how your league deals with position eligibility. But he can play outfield, he can play second base, and he can play first base. So we'll have to see exactly how much the Astros play him, because I know the O's are getting some heat right now because they called up Heston Kjerstad, and they've played him twice in like the 10 games he's been up for. Same with a couple other teams not playing prospects they call up. So it's always a risk. Check that before you go all out for these guys on Fab. But the Astros offense needs all of the help they can possibly get right now.
I couldn't agree more. And the one thing I'll add, you made a great point. Check your league settings, what he is in. I did a quick look here, and the one I knew because I looked at it myself, and it's it's pretty
Yahoo?
interesting. No, actually not. It's not Yahoo.
Because Yahoo, if you breathe at a position, you qualify.
Yeah, if you think that you played it, you got to.
You dreamt 7 years ago that you played this. You played it in Little League. You qualify in the majors on Yahoo for that position.
Yeah. So over on Fantrax, from what I am seeing, it looks like he's outfield only. On Yahoo, he's outfield only. On our beloved ESPN.
Oh, fantastic.
On our beloved ESPN, and I'm trying to get the other numbers because I'm just more so genuinely curious how it goes here. He has outfield and second base eligibility. Joey Loperfido, as I am looking here in 2022, 29 games in the minors at second base. 2023, he did have 21 games. And I do believe ESPN's for a season, it's 20 games. I think that's what they use. And then in season, I think it drops to 10 or something like that. So on ESPN, I love the second base eligibility for a power hitter like him. Because coming into the year, we talked about that second base position was a little top heavy with talent. Yeah. And it thinned out a little bit. So Loperfido on ESPN, I would be more inclined to go there, especially with the dual position eligibility.
Yeah. Now be cautious, because I can almost assure you, unless Jose Altuve gets injured, he's not getting second base eligibility
in other formats.
Or other sites, I should say. Like ESPN, he'll keep it. He's not going to lose it until like next year, right? They don't take positions away if you don't play them in season. But in other formats, he may only stick as outfield only unless they play him at first to take out Jose Abreu, who is.
Could you imagine Loperfido over on ESPN getting outfield first and second base eligibility?
That would be.
That's a nice little spread.
That is a nice spread, because then he qualifies at corner infield and middle infield and outfield.
And I mean, there's a path to it. I'm looking here over at Fangraphs right now. The first base position for Houston this year has a 150 batting average, 218 OBP, a 177 slug, and a 18 N18 WRC plus.
Right. You said 18, like
1-8.
To put that in perspective, folks who don't necessarily follow WRC plus, 100 is league average. Every number below that is a percentage below average or a percentage above average, right? So if you're at 110, you're 10% better than league average. If You're at 18. You are 82% worse than league average, which is basically non-existent. Like, if you didn't play anybody there, you may have a better WRC plus than the guys they are playing at first base.
Just to kind of put it into perspective, similar-ish numbers for the Houston first base position comes to Colt Keith so far this year, who has a 17 WRC plus, a 161 average, and a 172 slug. So if you just want to try to conceptualize it a little bit, that's what the Houston first base position has looked like. Also with subpar defensive metrics too. So you don't even have that to hang the hat on.
Nope. Not even saving runs. They're costing.
Hope for first base. A couple appearances there. Let Loperfido get first, second, outfield, corner, middle, utility. Throw him a couple games behind the plate. He hasn't done that over on Yahoo. Just let him think about it, and he'll get that eligibility.
I mean, they're not taking Yainer Diaz out sure behind the plate.
But ESPN outfield second base, that would be typically you add the player, and that is what it is. But I would say I'm going to give a little bit of if you play on ESPN, he takes a little bit more precedence because that's a relatively unique pairing. And if he throws first base on top of that, that's a very beneficial trio.
I don't think there's anybody else that qualifies. Like, you're talking Craig Biggio for qualification.
Yeah, like I'm trying to even look like Mookie. Obviously, I think he still has the second.
Mookie is now second outfield and short
over at ESPN. Yeah, he's got second outfield and short, and he's kind of like the.
Obviously, Freddie Freeman's blocking him at first base. So
Ahmed Rosario's got the second base outfield. Luis Rengifo's got second base outfield. Tyler Freeman's got second base outfield, but none of them also have first base in the mix. So Loperfido would be a unicorn if he can get that first base with the other three. Oh, Cavan Biggio does first, second, and outfield on ESPN.
Congrats, but that guy doesn't play enough to make him.
Yeah, exactly.
worth using.
Take a look there at Loperfido. And actually, you know what, Matt? I'm going to use that as the segue because early season fantasy surprises, good or bad, is what we talked about the last couple of weeks. We're going to continue that trend. I am going to use this as a cautionary tale. You can be the number one ranked prospect in baseball.
Yep.
At the end of this day, this game is insert a bleep. I don't know if we can do that. Bleep hard. This game is bleep in hard. It's a hard game. Just because they're uber talented, just because they've done all of this, they are not from the guarantee. So I would be very cautious with just dropping players of value, chase the next best thing. Does that mean you potentially miss on the guy that comes up and goes nuts? Sure. But what if you dropped someone of value for Heston Kjerstad? You've had zeros because for some reason he's apparently just come up to be a bench presence, apparently.
I mean, the milkman always delivers, right? They're playing Cowser over. I mean, Austin Hayes shouldn't be playing, but whatever.
Wyatt Langford. And Wyatt Langford was going pretty early on in drafts. He hasn't found his stride yet. It's an adjustment period that has to happen.
He strided his way all the way around the bases for an inside the park home run.
True.
By the way, interesting fact. I know this is a tangent. Don't mean to interrupt, but how many guys do you think since 2010 have gotten their first career home run as an inside the park home run?
I saw the post, and I never. You could have gave me 12 guesses, and I never would have got that number.
I wouldn't have assumed that it was 10. 10 guys since 2010. Their first career home run has been an inside the parker. There's no way I would have guessed that. That's like almost one a year. So, sorry. Didn't mean to. But you said Wyatt Langford and it triggered the.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's
insane.
Yeah, that's that number's way too high.
I mean, I know I believe it. You see at least a guy per year do it, but is their very first home run?
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. And you got guys like Langford, slow start. Jackson Holiday comes up, just looked overmatched despite being the top prospect in baseball. You have to be careful with these prospects. And Loperfido, the home runs have been great in the minors. There's some strikeout, there's some swing and miss. Big league pitching is a whole different animal. Correct. I am all for chasing the upside of players if you have a drop to do so. But if we're going to drop players of value to chase the new thing, it might work. It very well could. It also very well can't, because as of right now, of all the prospects that we've had either begin the year with the big league club or come up since the beginning of the year, how many have actually been of note in a positive manner? Colt Keith, struggling. Langford, not up to expectation thus far. Jackson Holiday got demoted. Jordan Walker got demoted. Not that he's really a prospect anymore, but
Right.
you catch my drift. Like we have,
Colton Cowser might be the only one.
yeah, and even when he came up, remember it took a bit for him to find playing time.
Right.
He didn't
He
play right
might.
away. Like the sample of not meeting expectations to meeting expectations significantly outweighs one another. Just be cautious with the shiny new toy. That's all I am saying. I am
Andy
not
Pajes
saying
has
to
been
avoid
doing
them.
pretty well.
Who?
Andy Pajes.
Yeah, true.
But that's
But
about
again,
it.
we're at about 2 or 3 compared to
And I
like
had to
5 or
think
6.
about that for like 35 seconds.
Yeah. And I mean, like Jack Leiter comes up, gets rocked, sent right back down. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of talent, and long term, they're going to be fine. Just, I'm not saying to avoid prospects that get called up like the plague. I am just saying we temper expectations. We
Correct.
don't drop stuff of players of value. That's all I'm saying. We'll consider each one. I say this: the next prospect that gets called up, like we just talked about Loperfido on ESPN, I'm probably looking to add him because I like the eligibility and I'm
Right.
going to trust the power right now. But we got to temper expectations a little bit. Just be very cautious with who you're dropping for the shiny new toy. Because as much as they could hit 500 with 5 home runs and 5 stolen bases that week, they could go for 2 for 20 with 14 strikeouts.
Yep.
This game's hard at the end of the day.
It is.
It's a really hard game.
It's really, I mean, I saw a bunch of tweets saying, "Oh, all these Hall of Famers did this in their first, X number of games, so Jackson Holiday could still be great." Yeah, he
Mhm.
certainly can be,
For sure.
for sure. Mike Trout was sent down when he first came up. He came up, struggled, was sent back down, came back up, and then turned into Mike Trout, right?
Yep.
Um, Hall of Famers make the Hall of Fame failing 7 out of 10 times.
Mhm.
Some of them make the Hall of Fame failing 3/4 of the time. Just
Yeah.
depends on the position, right?
Yep.
Um, that should tell you everything you need to know. So I get it. Disappointing Jackson Holiday didn't stick, but he'll be back. Needs to work on some stuff. Figured out. I still don't get the Jordan Walker thing.
Same.
Um, my surprises. I'm gonna read this list because it's reasonably long, and I don't want to. I've already trimmed it for guys that don't necessarily fit, but my surprises are thus: Gleyber Torres, Alex Bregman, Leody Taveras, Andrew Vaughn, Joey Meneses, Spencer Torkelson, Colt Keith, Jose Abreu, Austin Hayes, Gabby Moreno, and Chaz McCormick. What do all those dudes have in common? They've had at least 50 plate appearances so far with 0 home runs. None. Now, there are more than that don't have home runs, but I didn't include guys like Mason Wynn who aren't really expected to hit homers, or Nico Horner who's not really a home run guy, or Tim Anderson who hasn't hit a home run since like the Obama administration. Like, you know, I'm eliminating some dudes who you don't expect home runs for. None of those guys have hit home runs so far. We're all talking about dudes who have 20 home run or more pop, right? I mean, Chaz McCormick was almost 2020 last year in 115 games. Had 22 homers and 19 steals. Gabby Moreno's got pretty decent pop for a catcher. There's also Austin Wells for the Yankees, who all he was supposed to do was hit long balls. Hasn't done one yet. Colt Keith, we talked about. Where'd that pop go? Spencer Torkelson was a 30 home run guy last year. Where'd that go? Leody, my number one concern with Leody Taveras was playing time, because if he got off to a slow start, Wyatt Langford showed up, but then you got Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter, and you're not taking out Adolis Garcia. Leody hasn't hit a home run yet. So these are odd. Like, speaks to the entire Astro sucking. Like, everybody talks about Toronto's evaporating offense. There's 3 Astros on this list.
Mhm.
I don't get it. I know Joey Meneses had a rough 2023. Was hoping he would bounce back this year. Hasn't done so just yet. But this is shocking that we're.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of these guys have more than 100 plate appearances. I just went from the qualified ones on Fangraphs up to the ones who had 55. There are more than 30 dudes on Fangraphs. If you go to 50 plate appearances as the minimum plate appearances, there are more than 30 guys with no home runs yet. Now, granted, some of them got injured. Like Anthony Rendon didn't expect anything from him, and now he's injured and he's never going to play again. And some other guys are not home run hitters, like I said, Nico Horner. Some more speed guys, Luis Ariz, who hits maybe 4 a year, right? But these dudes are all 20 home run hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Not great, man. I guarantee you there's a roster in fantasy baseball that has at least 3 of these dudes on it.
I would imagine so.
I mean, it's not like they all went super close together in ADP that you couldn't have gotten all of them. Like, I'm sure there's one that has at least 3.
I would imagine so.
Just shocking.
Yeah, it's who knows.
And it's not like all of them are hitting terribly. Some of them have decent batting averages and decent walk rates and decent strikeout rates, and it's just not going over the fence. It's amazing. Sure, some of them are not hitting like Jose Abreu's not hitting at all.
Yeah.
Period. Like 1 hit every 4 games type not hitting. I get that.
Yep.
But Bregman's at least hitting decent.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with him was all of his home runs coming home. Well, they played at home. I don't know where the power went.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely interesting. Maybe pitching's been better. Slow start offensively.
I don't know. Or maybe Bregman's pushing because he wants a new contract because like he's in a contract year and he's pushing a little bit, maybe. But that only really explains one of them. That doesn't explain Glaber or Leote or Andrew Vaughn or Torkelson, who looked like he was on the upswing. Yeah, I mean, Jose Abreu's like 800 years old, so there's that too.
Well, for what it's worth, if we go back to 2021 for March and April, let's look at all pitching. March, April in 2021, pitchers 3.99 ERA with a 4.09 FIP. March, April of 2021. If we look at 2022, March, April, 3.72 ERA with a 3.78 FIP. So a little bit better there. 2023, March, April, 4.36 ERA with a 4.23 FIP. So last year pitching was a little bit worse statistically. And then here so far this year, as long as I'm filtering this right, 4.02 ERA, 4.02 FIP. So it's not that far off from past years. These guys must be sliding a little bit.
They're just sliding. I mean, Jose Altuve has 7 homers.
Tyler O'Neill has like 30.
Mike Trout. Everybody said Mike Trout was washed up. The Angels are toast. Mike Trout's done. He can't stay healthy. Granted, he's hitting 226.
Joe Adell even has 3 home runs.
Mike Trout's got 10 homers and 5 steals. Now, he's on pace to hit like 65 homers and have 70 RBI. He has 10 homers and 14 RBI right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, heck, even Giancarlo Stanton, who nobody wanted to draft because they didn't think he was going to be healthy, has 6 homers.
Yeah. Well, hitting has definitely been interesting. Pitching's been littered with injuries, but there have been some good surprises here. You and I both picked a couple of positive starts for a couple of right-handers. So I'll let you take the wheel here first.
Yeah. So we touched on a Red Sox a couple of pods ago, Cutter Crawford. If you look at Fangraphs and you look at their qualified pitching leaders, okay, which basically amounts to 74 pitchers. The number 1 guy in WAR is the other Red Sox co-ace, Tanner Houck. He's been phenomenal so far this year. And he's made 6 starts already. Almost 40 innings pitched. Great. 1.60 ERA. Fantastic. 2.04 FIP. So he's not that far off. He's pitching as is expected, basically. And if you look at his game log, he's had 3 starts in April in which he had more than 9 strikeouts or 9 or more strikeouts and no walks. That's impressive. He's doing including a complete game shutout, by the way. Complete game 3-hit shutout. Granted against Cleveland. But hey, they're leading the AL Central for right now. So there's that. But yeah, good on Tanner Houck. People taking him late in the draft because It was kind of iffy the last couple of years. Didn't know if he was going to stay healthy or how long he was going to stay in that rotation. And Boston had all sorts of question marks. Guy's a fantasy ace right now.
Sure is. Top
Maybe,
5 strikeout to
maybe
walk
the
ratio
best,
too.
maybe the best pitcher in fantasy so far.
Yeah, in terms of pitching value, probably put Jared Jones up there as well in terms of just value and stuff. But yeah, Tanner Houck, one of 6 pitchers with a strikeout to walk ratio of 8 or higher thus far. And of those guys, only Ranger Suarez has a lower ERA than he does with a
Yeah.
strikeout to walk ratio of that good.
I mean, the wins, he's getting a little dinged in wins. He's only got 3 compared to Glasnow and Ranger Suarez with 5.
Yeah.
But in terms of ERA, strikeout rate, whip, it's pretty hard to argue Tanner Houck isn't in at least the conversation for best fantasy pitcher right now.
So Tanner Houck is actually one of 15 qualified starters with a sub 1 whip, and another one of those guys is also Keaton Winn. If you want poor man's Tanner Houck, take a look at Keaton Winn. Less strikeouts. He might walk a little bit more, but what Winn has done exceptionally well is ride his splitter. Great feel for it, generating a ton of ground balls with it. Overall, he's got a 94th percentile ground ball rate right now. And if you can go over to Baseball Savant, I would highly recommend people doing this. The feel for his splitter has increased. When you look at 2023, his little pitch contour or the heat map, pretty wide in terms of that splitter. It's dialed in 2024, and then his pitch mix has shifted just a little bit with his four seamer. If you look, he is allergic to the bottom of the zone with his fastball. He is simply splitter down, fastball up. That is what he is living off those two, and then he's got a sinker and slider that he'll mix in there a little bit. Would like to see the slider get a little bit more swings out of the zone, or at least the heat map not be in the zone with it. But splitter down, fastball up, play up his velocity a little bit. He can do that by throwing it higher. It's not like his velocity is bad, averaging at about 95, 96. But when you're pounding splitters down and the only thing you're going to throw up is that four seamer, that 96 might play closer to 98, 99. It'll look a little bit more impressive. And when you look at Win 3-3 on the year, fine. But 3.18 ERA and a 0.97 whip. He is helping the ratios. Hopefully he gets a few more wins. I think the strikeouts kind of are what they are with him. I think that's just going to kind of be how it is with him. But overall, it's not like he's a detriment in that category. But if you have someone else on your team who's maybe playing up the strikeouts, play up win strikeouts, wins ratios can help the other guy. And you can kind of even it out with those two. But Keaton Winn's been very impressive here through the first couple of starts of 2024.
Yeah, and he's yet another guy the Giants bring up, nobody talks about, and the dude is just a baseball player.
And we'll have to see once all these guys get healthy, who do they kick from the rotation? Does Snell just never come off the IL? Because who the heck knows what's up with him? I mean, at this point, they shouldn't remove Keaton Winn for the likes of Robbie Ray and, I always get this confused. Alex Cobb is still there. Yes. Who I always get him confused with Alex Wood because they're both Alex, 4-letter last names. Always get those two confused. But yeah, Alex Cobb there with, I think it's like a hip issue or something. So he's banged up there. We'll have to see what happens with the Giants moving forward, but that Win should remain in the rotation. So we touched on some positives there for the most part pitching. We were a little down on the hitters. Let's talk about some overreactions here in the early season. One of these guys, kind of a late round flyer type pick. Other guy was supposed to be a stalwart in your fantasy lineup. So let's first talk about the Chicago right-hander Eric Fedde, who's opened the year sub 3 ERA, 39 strikeouts across 34 and 2/3 innings of work with a 1.07 whip. Not getting a ton of swings out of the zone, but missing bats at a fine rate. 74th percentile strikeout rate, 73rd percentile walk rate here. He's got his ERA of 2.6, expected ERA of 3.2. It's been an impressive start from him. He is 2-0. I wouldn't expect him to win many games pitching for Chicago, and that lackluster.
He has a third of their wins.
Yeah, that lackluster of an offense. So what do you make of Eric Fedde? Is he someone that we can hold on to? Should we be looking to kind of sell high-ish while we can? What do you are we overreacting to Fedde's start?
I might sell high on him. Look, he's a former Nat. I do like him. He did go pitch in Korea last year. He changed up his pitch mix there a little bit. I just read an article about this. He wasn't so sure that what he switched his pitch mix to in Korea was going to work in the majors, but it appears to be working. So look, if you desperately need pitching, I would ride him while he's hot. If you're just riding a hot hand, I would try to sell him, sell high. See what you can get for him because he's coming off a masterful start in his last outing. But the wins are going to be few and far between. I mean, the White Sox are 6-22, so his 2 wins are literally a third of the team's wins, and I don't know where. I mean, you're not talking double-digit wins for Fitty. I would almost guarantee it. So, um, I think it's fine. Hard not to overreact. The pitch mix is changed. We've seen it before with pitchers where they switch up, just tinker a little bit, and all of a sudden it unlocks some stuff because pitches play differently off of other ones. So yeah, if you need him, keep him. If you're just riding a hot hand, I would try to sell while sell high.
I would agree as well. Is Randy Rosarina a potential buy low? He's opened the year as I'm looking here 152, 226, 257 slash. Does have the 3 home runs and 4 stolen bases, so he's giving fantasy managers a little bit there. But 16th percentile expected batting average, 9th percentile whiff rate, 23 or 23rd percentile strikeout rate. When I look here, barrel rate way down from 2023, but maybe 2023 was the outlier. And this is kind of just settling into 2021, 2022 range. Barrel rate, I just mentioned that is down a little bit. Max exit velocity is down. Average exit velocity is relatively fine. The launch angle is in a pretty good spot. Expected batting average of 214, but his WOBA 223, expected WOBA 283. So is Randy Rosarina a buy low, or do you think there's a larger issue at play here?
This one is this one's tricky. My first thought is, well, it's Randy Rosarena. He's a 25-25 candidate, right? Like, it's just what he's been. But my next reaction is this a sign that pitchers are pitching around him? Because right now, according to Let's Go Off Fangraphs, their lineup right now is Yandy Diaz, Richie Palacios, Arozarena, Isaac Paredes, Ahmed Rosario, Harold Ramirez, Ben Revort, Jose Caballero, and Jose Siri. Any of those bats scare you other than a Rosarena? I mean, maybe
really.
Paredes, but
Maybe.
he's basically a 1-year guy right now. I think they're just going, hey, everybody else beat us. You're the Rays. You're supposed to have plug and play dudes. Go beat us. So I'm not sure that he's getting anything to really hit. And I think he's happened upon some mistakes for pitchers with those homers. I just don't think he's getting very many pitches to actually do anything with because he is the only bat in that lineup. And if you look at Fangraphs, they have the pitch types that he's seen. Granted, it's early in the season, right? So smaller sample sizes. But the percentage of fastballs he's seeing is down. The percentage of sliders he's seeing is down. Cutters are up. Curveballs are up. Changeups are up. So I think pitchers are going, here's a bunch of junk crap. Go try to hit it because you're the only guy we're really concerned about.
And what's interesting too with the Rosemary, we talked about a lot of guys. Like we looked at Kevin Gossman, generally slow starter. Seen some other guys that are relatively slow starters. When I look at a Rosarina, back in 2021, March, April, hit 287, about his third best or second best batting average he had in any particular like stretch in a season. 2022, slow start in March, April, bounced back from there. But 2023, he opened March, April, first 28 games with 7 homers and a 327 average. So relatively, I mean, for his career, 250 average in the first half, 269 in the second half. So maybe it's an element of just a little bit of a slow start. He does tend to run a little streaky. That is part of his game. Maybe that's kind of just what we're seeing here. Is he someone you'd be willing to buy low on in the hopes that maybe when the Rays call up Junior Caminero, get Josh Lowe healthy, maybe the offense gets a jolt of energy and Rosarina come back a little bit? I think I'd buy low on him, but it could be a tough little bit until the numbers turn around.
I mean, here's the thing. Also, if you look at the walk rates, this was his best walk rate in March, April of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so far. I mean, technically, we still have 2 days of April left, right?
Right.
This was a little bit higher on the strikeout side, but again, if he's not seeing pitches to hit and he's trying to make something happen, strikeouts are going to go up. Like I don't know. That would be my assumption right now is that the Rays offense is not clicking the way we're used to seeing the Rays offense click because of a combination of injuries and at some point getting cute with roster construction bites you in the rear end. Um, and the Rays, I understand the budgetary concerns and all that, but the Rays have been just living on a knife's edge every year. And I get Brandon Lau is injured. Taylor Walls didn't really do anything, but he's injured. Aranda also injured. Josh Lowe is injured. So I would buy low and see what happens.
I would as well. And as we close the door on this week's episode of Caught Stealing, make sure you head over to fantasyalarm.com, become an all-pro subscriber today, get access to everything and anything under the sun that we got there, access to our brains in the Discord channel. Later this week, we'll have another edition of the Caught Stealing podcast. I'll update the fantasy baseball injury report later in the week. Matt will have some new prospect content out for you, so make sure you check that out midweek. But as we close the door on this episode, Matt, let's give a bold prediction for the week ahead, and I will let you kick it off.
Mine is that the Royals will be in first place in the AL Central by this time next week. They are only 2.5 games behind Cleveland. The Royals have been rolling, starting to figure some stuff out. They have a couple of tastier matchups this week. I do think the Astros start to figure things out. I don't think they can be this bad this long and not, figure it out. So I'm going to say that the Royals are first in the AL Central by this time next week.
I will head over to the NL East. Phillies are a game and a half back of Atlanta by this time next week. The Phillies will own the NL East. They kick off series this week with the Angels and the Giants, whereas the Braves have to go up against the gauntlet that is the Seattle Mariners starting pitching rotation, and then the LA Dodgers. So give me the red hot Phillies 8-2 in their last 10 to take over the NL East. Give Matt Selz a follow over on X at the Selzman. I'm at Colby R. Conway. Like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to. And we will see you later this week with the newest edition of Caught Stealing.